Hey, this is the private one. I'm going to talk about the private investment we have. This Jex Technologies is a privately held company. Shareholders like us and many other funds and such have positions in this company, and it is not it's not a mining company in the strict sense. Okay, this is not a company that operates mines or has mining projects or exploration projects or whatever. This is something totally different, and quite frankly, it's somewhat unique in our portfolio. This is a company that has a technology that I feel very strongly could totally revolutionize the copper industry and the gold industry, and maybe even a few other industries, a few other metals. Okay, this isn't a little story. This is a really big story. And I'm going to walk you through it really quick, but I want to give you an impression of the opportunity and the reason why you need to consider Crescat, us, because we see these opportunities, whereas most people aren't even aware of them. Okay. All right, go to the next slide. I did throw the forward-looking statement slide in here because I grabbed these slides. The company actually provided these to me, and I want to make sure that people are aware this is an early stage company, but it is, and there's some things in their slides that require forward-looking statement. But it is a very exciting opportunity. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, who runs the company? Dave McMullen. Okay, I met Dave a couple of years ago. He happens to be involved with another investment we had. And through that convergence of meeting Dave through that, I learned about Jex. And I also met with some of these other folks on here, George Young, for example, Vincent Spinelli. Look, very sharp team of people. They're mainly in the realm of metallurgy and engineering, so they're not traditional explorers or things like that. Like I usually present, but these guys are super smart and they're very, very capable of running a highly technical company like Jex. Okay, go to the next slide. And by the way, if anybody in the audience ever wants to reach out to the company, Dave is the man to speak with. Okay, what is Jex Technologies? Well, they have this process, this right to a technique. You will call it a patent called hydrojex, and it is basically a means of extracting metal from rock that we thought was already done. Like we thought we had extracted the metal. Any residual metal, this process can scavenge it. Okay, and this was invented by Dr. Tom Seal. He was at Newmont. In fact, that's why it's like when Dave said, "Oh, Tom Seal's, invented this or basically has a patent on this." I was like, "Holy cow!" Okay, this Tom Seal is an old timer at Newmont, but he was a senior metallurgist at the company, and the guy knows his stuff, and he's very, very creative. In fact, Newmont has a long tradition of having very creative metallurgists working for them. So when I saw this, I was like, yep, I'm in. Okay, no matter what. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, the investment thesis. Look, I could go through each one of these bullets, but to sum it up, is this: it's a patented technology, and it's a very broad patent. In other words, they have a patent over the process in a big way, so that other companies cannot directly compete with them. I checked into that, make sure we weren't talking about something that was going to be, just leapfrogged by some other company out there with some other competing technology. They have the goods, and I'm very confident nobody else can displace them or displace the market that they are going to attempt to capture here. Okay, they are already working with some of the biggest mining companies in the world. In fact, Anglo American is one of their customers. Just so happens, though, they did a deal with Freeport here recently. And I'm going to take a little bit of credit because I was the one that introduced the company to Richard Atkerson and Kathleen about a year ago. I think it was a year ago today-ish, more or less. I happened to have a beer with Richard and Kathleen after a function, and I told them about Jex. And I'm telling you, within 48 hours, half of the vice presidents of Freeport were on a phone call with Jex, and they were all over this thing. It was, I've never seen people jump on something that fast. Okay. And they've now taken a 10.7% position. More importantly, They are aggressively using or utilizing this process, this technique for many of their old heap leach operations, starting with Morenci down in Arizona. Go to the next slide. Okay, so what does this do? Well, this is a picture, a cross-sectional view of a heap leach, a schematic image, if you will, and it shows how we tend to stack a heap. It's usually stacked in layers. This is just broken up rock or crushed rock that's stacked, and then we put a sprinkler system over the top of these layers, so that the fluids coming out of the sprinkler system trickle down through the stack of rock, and they basically dissolve metal. They have chemicals in the solutions that dissolve metal. They go down to the bottom, go off to the solution reservoir, and then the metals, the fluids are pumped out, and metals are stripped out of the solution. Pretty simple process, but there's some problems that develop. Mainly channelization. Okay, if you see the blue lines, those represent pathways for the fluids, and oftentimes the fluid that's put on a heap gets channelized, and it only goes down in certain paths, and it has trouble spreading out into the rock adjoining the pathways that have formed. Okay, so there's a lot of dry pockets. There's also things like clandestine matter, meaning things like in the gold world, maybe carbonaceous material or something you want to avoid. Okay, that's also a problem in heap leach. But this shows you that a heap is very ineffective in many ways. I'm not saying it's totally ineffective. We use heap leaching for years, but it's very ineffective in terms of its gross metal recovery. You leave a lot of metal in a heap leach because of those problems right there. Go to the next slide. Okay, so what are we talking about doing? Okay, this is a picture of one of their Hydrodex units. It's basically a machine with pumps and whatnot, and I'm a geologist, and I don't dare go into this space because I'm not an engineer. But it basically uses a pressurized system of injecting fluids into a heap leach such that the fluids can scavenge metal from all those dry areas. Okay, the company usually goes in and does a little bit of shallow level geophysical work over an old heap leach to ascertain where the dry pockets are and some problem areas are. And then they go in there and they put a grid of drill holes in the ground. Go to the next slide. What you're seeing here is an image showing you the wells or drill holes or injection wells that they put in to a heap leach. So the green X's are each injection holes. And then the circles that radiate out from each one of those, that's basically the radius of influence around the injection well, each one of the injection wells. And they do this in a way such that they overlap, the circles overlap, so they make sure they thoroughly leach the pad. Okay, and down here on the bottom, you can see a truck with pipes and whatnot going out. That's one of those JEX units. And each one of those pipes is going out to one of those injection wells, okay? And it's pumping solutions down into that well. I'll show you more here in a minute. Now, the scale is real important here. Okay, so the scale of the circles is about 25 to 35 meter radius. Okay, so basically a circle is not quite the length of a football field, maybe half the length of a football field, something like that. Okay, but that gives you a sense of the scale. So you need about one injection well for every half of a football field, something like that. All right. And what the company does is they call that a zone, a unit. A zone is basically their economics of the whole process is driven around one of those circles, one of those zones. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, here's a cross-sectional view that shows the injection well, the blue pipe there. Look, the perforations are basically just perforations, small holes along the pipe. These pipes are designed to be resistant to degradation in solutions and stuff. So they're made of special alloys that prevent the metal from rusting. And there can be different levels. I mean, this just shows you a schematic image. You can have like many different perforated pipes down the length of the injection well, and the injection well can be tens of meters, even over 100 meters in some cases. But they always stop the thing short of the bottom of the liner. You don't want to puncture through the liner at the bottom of the heap because then the fluids can get out. Okay, that would be bad. So they stop 10 meters above the bottom of the liner. Okay, but this injection well is now in a position, it is so simple, guys, it's crazy. Okay, it is now in a position where they can inject pressurized fluids that go out into the material around the pipe, even into those dry areas that were channelized, that didn't see fluids earlier. Those get saturated with fluids. And in fact, they get irrigated with fluid very, very quickly. Okay, so not only can you use this for irrigating old heap leaches and trying to get that residual recovery out, you can also apply this to new heap leaches, that are just freshly stacked, and make sure you get all of the metal out from day one, and you get it out much quicker because you're injecting the fluids through this thing. It's going like lickety split. Okay, so this has a huge impact in recovery. You go from recoveries of 50, 60% in many heap leaches to recoveries of nearly 100%. Okay, you can scavenge metal out of old heap leaches. You can quickly recover metal out of new heap leaches. It's unreal. Okay, this will change the whole copper space and the gold space. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, so you're going to recover more metal, period. You will see recoveries more like 90 to 100% in the heap leachable or soluble metal in the rock. You'll see it come out. It speeds up recovery. It helps to stabilize the pads, because when you have a nice even distribution of fluids and stuff, it actually helps compact and stabilize the pad. And it also reduces the amount of time that's needed to go to reclamation, because you can pump fresh water through the irrigation, the injection wells at the end, and you can rinse the heap. That's crazy. Okay, that means you can actually rinse the heap in preparation for closing the heap and recontouring it and making it, into a usable landform. This is crazy stuff, but it's so simple, but it is what this company does. And they have the patents that cover this. Go to the next slide. Okay, any copper that was lost is recoverable basically by hydrodecks. Okay, what does that mean? Well, when they, in the old days, like Morenci or something, they might have stacked a bunch of oxide copper, grading 0.5% copper, and they might have got 60% recovery. So call it, 0.3% of the copper came out. That still means there's 0.2% of the copper left. This thing goes in and gets that 0.2%. 0.2% is a lot of copper. We're talking about, 4 or 5 pounds of copper, something on the order of 20 odd dollars of metal that comes out of each ton. And by the way, a cubic meter is about 2 tons. So, you get a sense. You're talking about $50 for every cubic meter of heap leach that, has, $50 of metal comes back out. That's incredible. Okay. But they charge, their whole structure is around charging on a per zone basis. Okay. So there's a base fee of $5,000 per zone, but then they also have a 20% surcharge. And I don't want to spend too much time going into the details of the economics here, rather than conveying to you the technique. But this is their business structure. It's to charge on a per zone basis. How many zones are there around the world? Billions. I mean, like, truly. It's crazy. Okay, so go to the next slide. All right. So this is why I put the disclaimer slide in, because this is talking about economics here. But it is very conceivable that these one unit can generate over $10 million of profit per year. Okay. And we're not talking about a company that's going to install one unit. We're talking about, a company that has a goal of getting 50 units out within the next 3 to 5 years. Okay. That's a bunch. Okay, this company can basically produce, revenues and then profits in it equal to many of those big copper producers I showed a few slides back. Wow. Okay, crazy. Go to the next slide. I shouldn't say that they're going to produce the copper. They will produce the copper for their clients. Okay, very important. But it does generate that kind of return for JECs. Okay, that's incredible. All right. You can see one unit, if it's utilized, and migrated and stuff, one unit can generate a net of $100 million per year in revenue. That's crazy. I mean, this is how economic this is. It's wildly economic. You're probably talking at about something that's going to produce copper at sub $1 per pound. Okay, out of stuff that's just sitting there. You don't have to pay for mining it again. It's sitting there in a heap leach. You just go in and getting the metal out. Go to the next slide. Okay, so the company presented, their picture of what could happen to the copper industry. Like 100 billion tons of copper is under leach globally right now. I mean, like right now, if you look around the planet, there's big piles of rock all over the place in Chile and Arizona and that have 100 billion tons of material under leach. Some of it's being leached, like it's freshly stacked. Some of it's residual, like historic leach, whatever. But there's a lot of opportunity here. The point is, they could put literally zillions of these machines out and do this thing on a bigger and bigger scale. Okay, now they already have deals with a lot of big companies. They've got Freeport, like I said, but they also got Codelco, Anglo American. I think Glencore and Grupo Mejio are also involved. But this gives you a sense of scales, and it's almost talking like crazy talk over here on the right hand side. You can read the numbers and get the impression. I'm not gonna be too crazy promotional, but this is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Go to the next slide. Okay, gold. Same look at gold. Okay, there is a lot of, we'll say, heap leaches out there, either old heap leaches that need to be rinsed or scavenged, or there's new heap leaches that could benefit from this. And basically, JEX sees opportunity to get into around 50% of that heap leach market that's out there. Okay, and you can see once again the types of dollar amounts we're talking about. The number of zones, 1.6 million zones. So 1.6 million of those cylindrical zones in heap leaches scattered around the planet over 17 years. Look at that. That's crazy EBITDA. That's just nutty numbers. Okay, this is a growth business. Okay, it's private now. It will grow. It will probably go public. We're in early. You want to enjoy the stake in this, talk to Crescat, right? This is the kind of thing we do. Go to the next slide. Uh-oh. Did I freeze up or did you freeze up?
I don't see. Hold on a second. I'm going to move Nathaniel. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. Now I promised I'd talk about one public company, and we got 8 minutes till the end of trading. So I'm sure people are going to go, jump on their iPhone. Okay, look, Red Canyon is an investment we took recently. It's a relatively new company. It is going to be focused on copper. I'm not going to do a deep dive of it today, but I wanted to talk about it because they have a very important project that they announced some news on that I think, for the benefit of folks listening, that we're excited about. We want to see them drill it, and I think there's a lot of room for this company to make a big discovery. Go to the next slide. Just real quick, the share structure is very tight. Okay, only 34.9 million shares out at the moment. Market cap's a piddly little 7 million. Let's go to the next slide. A lot of these names, like Wendell Zerb and Alistair Waddell, are folks that you've probably seen associated with Inflection Resources. So same team here. Craig Hart, where have we seen his name? Snowline. Okay, Craig's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He's the brains behind the reduced intrusion model, and he is very smart at looking for any deposits associated with igneous intrusions. Okay, and he is advising the company, but he's also, he's their chief geoscientist. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, they have a collection of properties in North America. Some are in BC, some are down in the Great Basin, in particular Utah and Nevada. I'm only going to focus on the Kendall project up in BC today, but the thing I would point out here is they got a portfolio of high quality copper projects, and given the track record they have, this team has with Inflection down in Australia, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of put something together where they work with a major mining company on an earn-in structure or something over time. That's certainly a model that could happen. Go to the next slide. Okay, Kendall. Kendall is up in BC. It's actually near Terrace, BC. It's within driving range, and it is a porphyry system. This is a beautiful schematic diagram. Actually comes from Jeremy Richards, a well-known geologist who passed away a number of years ago. But I love this picture because it shows how a porphyry forms. It's basically in a subvolcanic environment. And these guys think that Mother Nature has eroded down to the tippy top of the porphyry system here. Now, why do they think that? Well, let's go to the next slide. Now, they put news out this week talking about some data they collected at Kendall just recently. And I want people to focus on this because this is one of those swing for the fence type stories, drill stories, that's going to be coming up here over the next few months. People should be aware of it. You can see over here on the left, we're just to the northeast of Terrace. In fact, it's like a 10-minute drive from the airport. There's a huge alteration field over here on the right-hand side that's been recognized for quite some time. Why it hasn't been explored properly, I have no earthly idea. But here it is. It's about 2.5 kilometers across. It is a big alteration cell that has good copper values in streams. Go to the next slide. And the team has done a very detailed analysis of the chemistry of the rocks in this area to understand, and this is where Craig Hart's value comes in, okay? This is a very detailed model of the chemistry of a porphyry deposit. And because they can look at the elements that are present in the rocks at the surface, they can pretty much estimate, hey, we're right at the tippy top of this potential copper porphyry system. And that's the sweet spot. Okay, they can poke some holes down in here and literally find a brand new virgin high-grade copper gold porphyry right underneath everybody's nose here in British Columbia. They've done the work. Let's look at the details. Go to the next slide. Okay, the two images up here in the upper left show you elements that are depleted, so elements that have been leached out by the hydrothermal system, and then elements that have been enriched, that have been put into the rocks in that area. And this is the kind of pattern you would see with a well-defined porphyry at that very important level, just above the porphyry system. Okay, so they can come in here now and they know, boom, right there, they can poke some holes down with luck. They will tag a porphyry copper deposit at just below the surface, maybe a few hundred meters, 200 or 300 meters. The images over here on the right show you stockwork veining, so crisscross veining. This is the kind of veining we would see with porphyry. It also shows you the pinkish mineral around the margin of the vein. That's potassium feldspar. So we have potassic alteration here. That means we're in the potassic zone. It's very important for finding ore. We are not far off from a discovery here. I really think these guys could come, deliver this goods this year with their first drill program.